Hey, welcome everybody to Think, Engage, Thrive. Tonight, we've got a really interesting entrepreneur for you. We're always trying to bring you great, innovative entrepreneurs, people that go above and beyond, or do interesting things, so we can all learn about it. And this guy, he's he's working on changing or updating Elasticsearch. Don't ask me. It's not my forte. Trust me. As everybody knows, I'm more of an e-commerce and consumer product guy, but I do understand SaaS and I do understand, marketing these types of products. But I think what he's coming up with, we'll hear about. But he's building an Elasticsearch alternative. I mean, he's obviously extremely bright. He's got a computer science and a neuroscience degree from Harvard, and he's worked at Microsoft, and he built Whist, which was a cybersecurity web browser. I believe it's still out there. I believe that you probably heard about it, but interesting. It'll be an interesting discussion nonetheless. I'm certainly curious about it, and that's why I wanted to have him on. And again, trying to bring you a variety of people that do all kinds of innovative things, and innovation comes in all forms from all types of people. And so we're going to bring him in. His name is Philippe Noel. He's from Quebec in Canada. Small town. He was telling me about it. Very small, but again, Philippe Noel. He's living in New York, where, as he puts it, dreams are made. But we'll see about that. But let's bring him in, and we'll talk to him. We'll figure out his background and get a better understanding of what he's doing and how he's changing the world. Philippe, nice to see you.
Hey, nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a bit of history? Give us a little backstory. Uh, how you got to where you are, a little bit about you, and what you've done, what you did with Whist, what you did with Microsoft, what you did at Harvard, that type of thing. So we get a good understanding of who you are, and then we'll get into what you're building now.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to. As you mentioned, I'm from a small town in Quebec called Rivière-du-Loup. Small French-speaking town. Grew up there my whole life. Eventually, I wanted to meet a lot of different people, and I thought the easiest way would be to learn English, and the best way to learn English would be to go abroad. So I taught myself English by watching Breaking Bad. You know the show? Yeah, so when
I
I was
do.
when I was 16, I learned about the SATs. I told myself I wanted to go to uni in the US because there's so many more unis than in Canada, and I had no idea what my chances of getting in anywhere were. So I thought, I'll go for quantity, right? The odds are better if you go for quantity. And I learned about the SATs. I took the first one online. I didn't do very well because I couldn't understand a bunch of the questions. And then I spent an entire year where I would study the SATs and watch Breaking Bad all night. And so my SATs essay was on, they always like make SATs essay about like some school related thing or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I looped in my vocab around, that I learned from Breaking Bad. But anyways, so I did that. Somehow got accepted at Harvard, studied CS and neuro. Um, and afterwards, I interned at Microsoft, which I'm happy to talk about. But I didn't love it. Love it. It's a great place, but it wasn't for me. And me and a friend, we decided that our senior year of uni in 2020, we would try to make a company of our own. And then we started Whist, and that started our entrepreneur journey right during our senior year of college. Didn't go to class anymore. We just work on our own company. Ran that for about 3 years, and eventually decided to transition to something else, joined Y Combinator, which is a pretty famous startup accelerator. Perhaps I'm sure you've heard of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and that started the journey of what we do now, ParadeDB. So we make SaaS for SaaS makers, if you will, software for software people. And that's kind of what I'm up to now.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you, it's funny that you say I learned English from watching Breaking Bad. I, when I was young, I spoke Italian. I grew up in an Italian house, but I haven't used it in 30, 40 years, and I just forgot all about it, and I wanted to pick it up again. So I started watching while I'm working. Sometimes in the background, I put on QVC Italy, and
Hmm.
only because I can relate to what they're talking about because I work in the world of consumer products, so I understand it, and I've worked on shopping channels for a long time. So it brings it back, so I can understand immersing yourself in Breaking Bad to learn English. But I don't know if that's the best vocabulary to have. But hey, if it works, it works.
Let's just say I was very knowledgeable about the world of Breaking Bad operates in. But I needed something, it's a great show. I needed something that would keep
No,
me
it is.
engaged despite you know, it's like it's hard to be engaged when you can't understand everything
Yeah,
originally, right? Um, but yeah, it worked all right. Now my vocab has branched off into the wider language, so I do fine.
that's great. Are you in Y Combinator now with with your new
Yes,
business?
well, the business, so the Y Combinator last 3 months as their like formal program. So we went through that. We went through it last summer in summer 2023, and now we're graduated. So we're still in the Y Combinator network and benefit from the resources and everything, but we're alums of the program.
How'd you like it?
Oh, it was great. We really liked it. We had great mentors, made great friends. We were very inspired by some of the people there, and the network has been very helpful. Our first ever customer was a fellow Y Combinator company, and still to this day, a bunch of our customers come from YC.
Yeah, we've had several entrepreneurs, and a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've worked with have gone through Y Combinator. Um, I think it's a phenomenal program
It
uh,
is, yeah.
for startups. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, so, what you were talking about, you worked for Microsoft for a little while, but it wasn't. You didn't think it was the greatest.
Well, so when I was in uni, I wanted to work on the future, right? That was also part of the reason for wanting to learn English and leave my hometown. Like I wanted to go where the place that everyone that wanted to build a future would go, right? So I would be a part of it. And I would wake up every day excited to be like building the tomorrow, right? That was the idea. Maybe it's a little like cheesy and
No,
wide-eyed, grandiose, but that was the idea. And I thought the big tech companies was where it happened, right? Because I used so many of their products and they were doing cool things. And also at the time, like Google was this high flying, had these like crazy research project and whatever. And so I got to Microsoft, and then I discovered that big tech is like mostly maintaining legacy software, right? That's
yeah,
like a huge part of it, right? And the innovative part is, 10%, 20%, 30%, right? And so I was slotted into this team, great people that were working on Windows Server migrations. So all the computers that run in the cloud nowadays, they overwhelmingly run an operating system called Linux, but Microsoft was on the first major operating system. And in addition to selling to consumers on your laptop or your desktop that you might use at home, they also sold a server version to like run, company software. And that's not very popular anymore. But as a result, organizations want to migrate from that to the Microsoft cloud offerings. And it's not easy because it's like 20, 30 years old software. So I was working on a team that was helping transition that. And I have to be honest, I did not care about that at all. And it did not feel like the future to me. And so I was pretty bored. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like I was working on that future I wanted. And so I realized, if it's tough to do because you don't really get to pick what you work on when you're working at a big company, especially early on in your career. I was like, maybe if I just create my own company, I get to work on whatever I want, right? It's not that true. You gotta, follow the market and what people want, but it's gives you a better sense of control at least, and that's kind of
yeah. To a
what
certain
I got
extent,
doing.
I agree with you. Yeah, to a certain extent, I agree that you have to work on what where the market's going, but you can work on what you think is the future. And big companies notoriously you can't innovate anymore. They get to a point, just like you said, where they're working on legacy problems, and the innovation has to happen outside. And then they wind up acquiring those companies for a lot of money because they can't innovate any longer. So you see it over and over again. I mean, Microsoft probably could have built a better AI system than what's out there today, but they couldn't. So they funded, Chat GPT, and you know, and so yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. It's very common that the acquisition path is a good one for them to launch new products. They try to innovate and they succeed in some ways, but in other ways, the small lean teams that are working fast they have some advantages as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's also built-in bureaucracy with large
Hmm.
companies, and that built-in bureaucracy stifles creativity and stifles speed, and it stifles what you're trying to accomplish. So yeah, I agree. You got to do it outside the company, and follow your own desire. I mean, if you want to change the world and you want to work on the future, you have to work on the future. Can't do it inside of an old company at this point, right? So and so that led you to what, Whist, right?
Hmm. Yeah, Whist was our first company. Um, Yeah, I mean the story of Whist is a story of many mistakes, which I'm happy to share. You said the company might still be around. It's no longer around. We closed it down in the beginning of 2023, end of 2022. Um, but we actually came to market with a first product in beginning of 2020. What we wanted to do initially was enable graphic designers and video editors and animators, everyone that works in the sort of creative media profession as a content creator to work remotely. And we completely by coincidence timed it pretty well with COVID. But the idea was, a lot of these designers that we had talked to, they would have pretty big computers that requires graphics cards, which are quite large and bulky to work. And we thought, hey, if we can run these computers in the cloud and give them a remote access to them via this video streaming system, similar to like Netflix, interactive Netflix in a sense, or remote desktop, if you've heard of that software, they could sort of work from a small device like a laptop, but actually access a big device remotely. And so we started working on that. We thought it was a novel idea, and it was not. We just, were young and dumb and thought we had, an idea that no one else had had. And then COVID happened around the same time, and demand for what we were working on kind of increased, both from customers and from investors. And then started the whole set of mistakes. Like, we were seniors at Harvard. We didn't go to class anymore. We just worked on this. VCs came in and gave us about $1 million. We When VCs approached us, we asked for 100,000 because we thought it was all the money. It was all the money in the world. I got $100,000. You can fix every problem the earth has ever seen, right? I mean, we were broke college students. Like, $10 for a burrito was my definition of money. And so they were like, no, this is like they forced us to think more because they knew it was never going to be enough.
Sure.
And so they gave us that money. And then we turned around to our best friends and we're like, hey everyone, like, come work with us. And then we participated in the entrepreneurship competition at Harvard. We won it. They gave us 75 grand for free as well. And we won a couple of other entrepreneurship competitions. And we started flying high on what I would call vanity metrics, where, like, our team was bigger. We still didn't really make money. We were giving the product away for free. It didn't work perfectly, but it worked okay. We had money from VCs. We had awards, which, didn't actually mean the business was working, but we had them and we felt good about them. And then started the beginning of the journey. Um, we, like, COVID happened. We all started working, and then we did that for roughly 3 years, where we sort of iterated the product. Eventually, we moved away from the animation world into the, like, general application world. We wanted to service any application you might want to use on your computer from the cloud. As we did that, we started seeing a lot of customers that were interested in using browsers over the cloud because they were quite memory hungry, especially if you were using them on an Apple device. And over time, we decided to just commit fully to the browser because it's the most prevalent application by far. And we became this sort of power performance enhanced browser where you could have some of your tabs opened via cloud. So just like today, you might open like a regular tab or a private or incognito tab. We had stream tabs that you could open, and the application would be, the web application would be run in the cloud. It was quite a feat of engineering, to be honest. It was very difficult work, and we took it pretty far. But eventually we started applying it to cybersecurity. But we made many mistakes. We did that for a few years. We're pretty burnt out, and we didn't fully understand the market very well, to be honest. And a couple of big companies, a couple of big cybersecurity companies out of Israel came out, and they understood the market so much better, and their product was so much more targeted to customer use cases, and they basically rolled over us. And so we decided to close the company down at the end of 2022, and collect our thoughts and see if we could do something better. And that led to starting our new company.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes early on in your first. I tell the story of in a different world, but my first business I started when I was 27. It was a total disaster, and it was I got through 4 years. I actually had something to sell at the end, but it just was it was horrible. It could have been so much better, but I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was a
Yeah,
terrible leader, and I was a terrible process manager, and it was just awful. And 4 years, and I was miserable. I was miserable as a person, and I was working 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. I could have made more money working for McDonald's in that time period, but um, but the lessons I took from that, I carry with me to this day because there are
exactly.
things I did there that I will never do again. That so you live and you learn. So it's better to get it out of the way when you're young, because then it always leads to success. So
Yeah, and you definitely we learned very fast. Like especially as I compared, many of my friends went into more lucrative, like standard careers, right? And obviously they're all doing well, phenomenal for themselves and so on. But you can kind of tell, like the people that went and started their own company, even if it didn't work out, they've just got exposed to so much more, so much quicker. Um, it's I don't know. It's some good and bad, right? It's tough, but it's a part of it, and we took a lot of learnings from it, and at least now we're applying the learnings to our second company, and things are going swimmingly. So you know, we'll see.
so let's talk about your new company and what you do and what it is and how it works and all that.
Sure. So the company I run today is with many of the people from the same team as before. We're called ParadeDB. What we're doing is we're building a modern alternative to a tool called Elasticsearch. So it's a tool that we sell to software engineers and software teams. It's used by companies that build software. Whenever you're using a software that has a search component in it, like a search box, if you go on Facebook, right, and you search for someone's name, they need to have a database internally that stores all the names of all the Facebook users and is able to process your input and match it against someone. So if you search my name, it'll be able to say, yes, Philippe has an account on Facebook. Here it is, right? And return it to you. That experience, it's very difficult to build thoroughly. And searching for data is a common part of almost every software out there. And so overwhelmingly, companies don't constantly reinvent it. There are companies that exist that offer databases specialized for searching data, and then they sell it to other software makers who integrate them within their software and focus on delivering their own experience. And the most popular of these softwares is this tool called Elasticsearch. It's a public company. It's traded on public markets. It's worth maybe $7 or $8 billion. It's quite a large company. They make over $1 billion in revenues each year. They were founded maybe around like 2008 or 9, and they made a phenomenal tool. But by now, it's quite dated. It's got its whole set of issues. It's part of the legacy software stack, these days, frankly. And so, the world has changed, and we're trying to build a modern version, if you will. So a database designed for search that that is much more pleasant and much more integrated within, cheaper and more resilient for the next set of applications.
It's always amazing to me that a company like what you just said, Elasticsearch, because it's not really been out there that long, 2007, 2008. And you would think that they would continue to evolve that product, um, and make it more relevant to today. You would think that they would stay on top of the market and roll with the changes, so to speak. You know,
Yeah, I mean, they're trying, right? They're trying in their own way. To be clear, smart people working there, they're still
sure.
innovating. But You reach a point, especially with software, where you get kind of locked into the design decisions that have been made at the time. And so our you know our software is built with a programming language that didn't exist back when Elasticsearch started as a company. And so back then they made the best design decision they have, but today the best decision is to use this new programming language. And if they wanted to go and completely overhaul their software with a new programming language, that would be a truly immense amount of work. I mean, they're building a new company from scratch, right? Which is what we're doing. And so some companies that are particularly good, they will actually do that, and they will sort of reinvent their own product proactively. But it's very difficult to do this because you fall into the sunk cost fallacy, right? And it's sort of easier to add on like the next brick on top of your brick wall rather than, throw it all away and rebuild a better wall, sturdier wall on the side. And so they're innovating sort of on top of their wall, but the foundation is not as strong as it used to be. And that's the opportunity for startups to come around, right? And say, hey, if we have a different set of implications, we don't have as big a team, I don't have as many mouths to feed and everything. Like I only need to make a small amount of money because I have a small team and slowly grow it. Then you have the opportunity to kind of question yourself and start from a different perspective. And it's commonly how, at least software companies, which are the ones I know, commonly how they take on big incumbents despite the wide gap in resources and marketing and awareness.
Yeah. Now, is AI going to impact the product you're building in a positive way? Because essentially, what we found, AI is a big, name that everybody drops nowadays, but
Mhm.
we've been using AI in our business for years, whether it's developing content or things like that. But what I use it for mostly, which I love, is the ability to pull large amounts of data and analyze it really quickly and give me some sort of a direction and answer. And so when I think about search on like in Facebook and all, is there some sort of an AI component built into what you're doing that's going to make that search faster or more efficient or make the database more efficient or something?
Yes, these AI services that you mentioned, ChatGPT and so on, they're all built on the back end of similar databases to the one I'm describing. So we have what people call AI search capabilities nowadays, or vector search, inside of ParadeDB. They also exist inside of Elasticsearch and pretty much every database designed for this nowadays. So we do support that, and many people build AI applications on top of our database today. It's been deployed around 50,000 times, and
Wow.
commonly one of the um, one of the core use cases is the ability to combine both AI search results and sort of traditional search result together into what is called hybrid search results, and they just give return better information to the user, and that's a big use case for our product.
Yeah. Yeah. ChatGPT is one component. We use that mostly for, there's a lot of GPTs out there to do different things. And in our business, because we're a marketing firm, we use it to do a lot of things on the content side. And
Mhm.
you know, I don't use it for image production. We do some things with video production and video editing and things like that. But the thing, like I said, the thing that I love the most is we've been using this product for about over a year that just pulls the data from all the different accounts on advertising and advertising results, and f- combined with um, the website traffic and combined with analytics and combined with all these different things, and really pulls all that data in and gives you a really good, solid answer to whatever your question is about what's happening. And that's the thing I love about it, because we use it. That's the part I use the most. I have people that use it all different ways, but that's the part I use the most. I just think that it's amazing to me. Even just if you have these huge spreadsheets, even just these huge spreadsheets of data, it'll just rip it apart and give you an answer extremely quickly. And I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's certainly crazy what it can do.
Yeah. we did a survey, which, you know, you have one-dimensional responses when you look at some of these survey responses, but I took all the data and put it into a spreadsheet, and it was, you know, thousands and thousands of columns and rows, and I pushed it into this product that we have, and it gave me, because then I wanted multiple dimensions. I wanted to know, like, the age group that looked at this plus this behavior plus this, and 4 or 5 variables, which is very difficult to do with most of the software, the traditional software that's out there to analyze survey results. And in like 5 minutes, I had the answer that I was looking for. And I thought it was, you know, it was just stunning to me. So I use it all the time. I just try and figure out ways to use it more to get more answers, right? Just for fun.
Well,
So
that's good. Yeah, I think it's gonna be, nowadays it feels like a novel thing, but it's just gonna be a normal tool in the future. And today
oh,
it's called AI tool, but in the future it's gonna be called a tool,
I
right?
know, I know.
Because it's gonna be necessary. You're just gonna need to use it in order to meet the baseline of productivity that you expect out of yourself and that people expect out of you. So it's certainly a fast evolving field, and we're more on the tangential side of it in that we don't build the end user application, right, or the end user experience, but that experience might be built on top of a product like the ones that I build, and so we get to see sort of second degree order and work with the developers that are working on enabling those experiences for consumers like you and I, which is it's an interesting place to be.
Yeah. Well, certainly you're achieving your goal of focusing on the future and focusing on what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, it's in a very small way. I think the world is big, and there's so many people that are working on the future. There's certainly people that are doing crazier things, but we're pretty happy with the work we do. It seems to resonate with people, and we're adding our small brick into the world, and so it's rewarding from that standpoint.
Well, small bricks lead to big bricks, and it
Yeah.
becomes a stepping stone. You know, when I think about, I watched an interview with Jeff Bezos, a while ago, who, you know, and he, when he first started Amazon, it was about books, then CDs and music and DVDs, but that's what he thought that his world was going to be. It wasn't until 2004 that he really thought about the marketplace and having other sellers, and he sketched it out over lunch on a napkin, and it's famous now. It's called the Bezos napkin sketch, but he basically sketched out. And so, you know, when you think about it, he was just another e-commerce company starting up with a focus on selling, you know, books, CDs, music, videos, right? That's what his focus was. And then it evolved, and he did, in my opinion, he changed the world of e-commerce in his own way. I mean,
Well, you certainly did.
yeah, you can love him or hate him, or you could love Amazon or hate Amazon, but the consumers love Amazon, and the consumers, he's changed really the expectation for e-commerce because, you know, today in e-commerce, consumers have expectations about shipping, delivery, and it's all based upon what's happened on Amazon, ease of use, how apps react. You look at Walmart. Walmart's got all the money in the world, and they can sit there and tell you, oh, we're going to compete with Amazon, but they can't compete with Amazon because, you know, until you have 93% of the buying population in the country putting your app on your phone and having that as your first go-to app when you want to buy something, that's when you can say you're beating Amazon. But until then, you really can't. And again, I'm not defending Amazon. I'm not doing any of that, but I do believe that Bezos really had an impact on e-commerce. And there's a lot of people that hate him, and a lot of sellers that hate him, and a lot of people in the Amazon world that hate him. But I, 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 I don't. I think he created something, you know, very, very cool. And you know, Bill Gates did the same thing early on. You know, he changed the world. So, you know, and he started out just building an operating system for IBM computers, right? And it turned into even more. So what you're building today, you know, 5 years from now, you might be standing up there like the CEO of NVIDIA talking about, you know, how you're changing the world of you know, processing. So
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's quite phenomenal, the idea of compounding, right? Like if you do something every day for 10 hours, after a year, you've done a lot. Like you've gotten pretty darn far, right? And oftentimes, at least it's a mistake we made with our first company. We thought we needed to have a big vision from the beginning, right? Our first company, we had this big vision for how people would change the way people work and so on. And if you actually look at these people that have made huge impacts on the world, they they perhaps always had a big, long-term vision, but they understood that they just needed something that was very well defined solution to a problem today. And if you have big dreams, it almost feels sort of restricting, right? To, say like, oh, what we're doing is we're selling books online. That's perhaps not as exciting as saying I'm going to change the world of e-commerce, right? But if you go to someone when you have nothing, you go to a consumer and you say, I want to change the world of e-commerce, they're like, I mean, I don't know. I guess my world of e-commerce is kind of fine, right? Like it's sort of too nebulous to even
sure,
like resonate with customers. But if you're saying, look, I'm gonna sell you books online because your library can't hold all the books and we can hold all the books, right?
yeah,
And so if you just do that every day and you keep listening to your customers and every time you release something, you ask them for their thoughts, keep the good, remove the bad, and ask them for what's missing, before you know it, it's actually pretty straightforward. Like our first company, we talked to very few customers. Like we felt very righteous. We were like, we have a vision for what the future should be, and we will build this vision. And a lot of our vision was wrong. And if we had been a bit more humble and we talked to more customers, they were telling us, right? In there, either directly or indirectly by using the product or not using the product, right? And things like that. But if you just go to people, figure out what their pain points are, and listen to them, they actually tell you what the future is. And it's my job to go and build it. But customers, they actually have the solutions already. They tell you what the future is. So just keep doing that one small thing at a time, and we'll see where it takes us. I don't know if it'll take us as far as the Microsoft and Amazons of the world. Those are pretty stark outliers, but anywhere along that line is good for me.
yeah. I I agree with you on focusing on the customer, and the customer will always tell you where what they need, where their pain points are, and you can build around it. And essentially, that's what Bezos did. That's where I think Amazon excels,
Exactly,
because it's all about the
exactly.
customer. He doesn't, the product is almost secondary to what he's really selling, which is, and that's why,
It's a phenomenal customer experience.
yeah, and that's why it, I listen all the time, and I've been selling on Amazon since 2006, and I understand it. We have clients, we help clients sell on Amazon. We do all kinds of things on Amazon and e-commerce. I mean, that's our sweet spot. I'm not in the world like you're in the of what you do, but I'm in the world of using it. And to me, I listen to people all the time talk about, there was another company that started a bunch of years ago that was going to be the Amazon killer, and everybody's going to be the Amazon killer. But what people fail to realize is, and again, until you have 92% of the buying population with that app on their phone, and that's the first place they go, they do that for a reason. He's got the customer. Customers locked into Amazon. They love Amazon. They love Amazon for free shipping, love Amazon for fast shipping. They love Amazon for selection. They love Amazon for all kinds of things. And once you have the customer locked in like that, it's very hard to break, very hard to break.
Yeah, it's very hard to break. Um,
So
it's all about the customers.
it is. It is. So, obviously now you went through Y Combinator. You've got a good understanding, right, of where you're heading, and obviously you have a good plan of action. Because I think one thing that Y Combinator really gets you to is really having a plan, right, and an understanding of how you're going to move forward. So, uh, right or wrong?
Right, mostly right. I think the truth is, like, people only have a plan up for so far ahead, right? So we have a rough plan and we have a concrete plan for like a short term, but at least like this early on, there's so many things that there are questions we don't have the perfect answer to yet, right? And so Y Combinator, I think, helps it. They helped us understand how to find the answers to the questions that we don't have answers to. And if you sort of continuously keep doing that, you find yourself building the plan in front of you, right? It's like building the bridge as you're walking it. And that's really how I feel doing startups. Like my bridge is like partially built. I'm gonna be honest, it does not connect to the other way of the river just yet, right? But it's like far enough in advance of me that there already are, the road laid out, that I know if I keep doing good work, I have time to find the answers and keep building the bridge as I go. So we have a plan, but no one ever has like a completely full plan.
Right.
And the other thing is the world changes, right? Like part of my plan are based on today's assumption, and something else will come up. A new competitor shows up, something else changes, and you got to adjust. So we have a rough plan.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got a rough plan, but and I think that one thing we learned, um, at least what I learned in my business was when COVID hit, it all the plans went out the window because we had to adjust and we had to change, in some ways good and in some ways bad. But yeah, I agree with you. But you know, at least you have somewhat of a path forward. So now you're at the point where you've got your foundation built, or you're building your foundation, and you're still moving forward. What's how do you go out and get new customers? How do you go out and get new clients? Is that just word of mouth? Do you have a strategy for that? Do you guys do, I mean, do you have a specific target, a specific, what does a great customer look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the world of infrastructure software. So a database, for example, is infrastructure software. It sits below the application software. It's an interesting world. So we sell to software engineers and software teams, right? The user of our product will be software engineers building software products, and the buyer, the person with the wallet putting the money, will be like a vice president of engineering, or like like a head of engineering or something like that, the manager of those teams. Those people don't really like to be sold directly, to be honest, right? They like to kind of find new exciting and cool projects that solve their problems, like poke around with it, have sort of an intellectual discovery around it, and then eventually they're like, oh, this solves our problem, we want to go into a purchasing. And so what we do is our product is built partially in the open, so it's an open source software. What this means is the code to the product is actually available for free online. And the idea behind this model is software engineers and hobbyists can go and they can see the work that I do. It's a very humble approach. Like all your work is completely visible in its raw form. And people can look at it and be like, wow, this is really well built, or this is very poorly built, and get really excited about it. And that gets people talking about it online. So we publish blog posts, we get talked about on forums where people say, hey, have you heard of ParadeDB? It's a really cool project that's coming around. And those engineers, they play with it for fun on the weekend, on side projects, or within companies. And before you know it, you have large organizations that reach out to us and say, hey, we've been experimenting with your software, we think it solves a problem we have, but we need XYZ. And that's when we start doing more of a deal with them, and they're sort of already half sold, right? Because they've already poked around with it. They don't have like a salesperson in their face that says like, hey, buy it, buy this, buy this, buy this. They sort of take their own time and experience it, and eventually come to us. They already know they want to use it. Now they're just making requests for support features and security guarantees and things like that. And that's kind of how we transform our free offering into an enterprise product that the enterprise will purchase and build on top of. And the benefit is also for all the people that don't have those big enterprise needs. Let's say you're a hobbyist coding a project on the weekend, you get to use the software for free, right? And so it sort of gives back to the community in that way. The big fish with the big requirements sort of sponsor the project indirectly for everybody to use. That's the approach we take to sales. It's uniquely uniquely software, I would say. It's very rare in other industries to see something like this, but it's our form of free trial in a sense.
Yeah. So how do you scale that though? How do you move that? I understand the model, but how do you really get that because it seems to me that you're relying on um, people finding your product and using your product, as opposed to um, like how do you get that group of people, whether it's on, you know, Substack or Reddit or wherever, talking about it?
Yeah, what we do, well, at least what we started doing is we just try to write. So we did a lot of content marketing in the early days, right? So what we would do is we would write about how we build our product. We would release the first version, and we would write an article that says like this is how the product is built and this is why. And people love, the sort of how stuff is made and so on. They get really hooked into this. They're interested in seeing why we decided to make certain decisions, what the implications are. Um, we write about the perform. Our product is quite fast. It's much faster than Elastic on a lot of benchmarks, and so we would make articles about how fast it is. And people love fast things, so they talk about it and slowly get the ball rolling on forums. And then before you know it, now we've reached a point where initially no one knew about it. Now it's very common where someone will talk about us without, we have no idea who they are, right? Nowadays, as the product's been deployed around 50,000 times, there's several thousands people that follow the project quite closely, and so that gets things started. As we go, we will likely start to take more of a sort of traditional sales approach where we sort of try to contact specific companies that we have observed are good targets for us. We've been used by companies in the software as a service world. We've been used by financial services companies quite extensively. E-commerce companies is another big one. Healthcare, health technology companies is another big one. So we've seen these people come inbound us after funding the project. So now we have rough ideas of what the profile of customers that really resonate with our message, and now we're going to do more like directed messaging to them. But we plan to sort of keep this sort of marketing. It's a simple model. We basically just do interesting things and write about it in an interesting way, and then sort of trust that that carries itself. And I mean, we're not a big company yet, but so far it's proved somewhat scalable. So we'll see how far we can take it.
Well, how do you get you write an article and where do you publish the article? I mean, even if you publish the article on your website, how do you get people to read it? How do you push it out there?
We publish on forums, mostly forums and social medias. So we're pretty known in like the infrastructure community now. We'll release articles on Twitter and they'll get retweeted by a lot of people, get like a couple tens of thousands of impressions, for example. There's, Reddit is also a big place where people like
Yeah.
to talk about a variety of topics. Oftentimes now, it's not even us that will post on Reddit. It's one of the people that follows our project who will announce new releases to the work that we do on Reddit on our behalf, because they're excited about it. There's another pretty popular forum for software called Hacker News. It's kind of like Reddit, but for software,
Yeah.
right? Specifically. Um, so we post on there as well, and we get some attention. LinkedIn a little bit. These are the kind of main places that we do it, and trust that it sort of reaches many of the people that like it. But it really, like it's crazy now. Every time we make releases, and oftentimes we don't, we have some software that sort of tracks keywords online, right? When our company gets mentioned, because we're curious to see where it
Yeah.
reaches. And now we have articles written about our product in Chinese and Italian and Arabic and Koreans. Obviously, English, Spanish is pretty common, those languages. And every time we see it, we're like, that's so cool, right? Like somebody somewhere in China said, this is cool. I want to tell the people that I know. And
Yeah.
someone in Italy says, this is cool. I want to tell people that I have no idea what the article says. I trust that they're saying positive things, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, the flywheel starts to take care of itself in some ways by just trying to do interesting work. Yeah.
Yeah. That is amazing. We had a client who was a software as a service product for years, and they sort of took the same approach. They were actually, I'm sorry, they were a gaming. They built components, core components to people who were building games. So it was a similar
Mhm.
type of thing. They weren't building the games; they were building some of the components that went with the game. And they took a similar approach, and it was pretty amazing to me how, at the time, Reddit was their number one place where were posting things, and it was the same thing. People were following what they were doing, and then they would take it and they would start talking about it, and obviously in different parts of the world, and it was amazing. But then it got to the point where they could see who was using, like what companies were using their product, and then they would start to outbound to them and say, calling them up, and
Exactly.
not a hard sell, but just saying, I saw that you use this, and what do you think? More like more like building a community of it. Give me some feedback. But that eventually led to, obviously, now an open discussion, right? If I know that, if I know that somebody at, ZeniMax is using this particular product to build their games, and I can call them and start talking to them as a relationship, saying, tell me what you like, what you don't like, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden now you've got a relationship with that person. So it becomes a softer sell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is what we started doing as well. You can see the people that follow, and they're like, they work at Walmart. Well, maybe we should go say hello to Walmart if they haven't come yet, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's an approach we're taking. The other way in which obviously you can reach people is with ads. We don't do ads. We don't plan to do ads for a long time. I think when you're a small company, you have the benefit that you can offer better customer support, frankly. It's very rare that big companies offer the best customer support, right? You can think of a bunch of companies that customers feel almost trapped in, right? They're like, Comcast or whatever, like those companies, they run a wire to your house. Like, what are you gonna do if they treat you like shit? I guess you don't really have a choice, right?
Right.
But when you're a small company, no one knows about you. And so the only way in which you get people to actually listen, right, is by just being more like being a better listener to them, offering a better service, like really caring for them. And ads, I think, is like what you start to do when you've reached a point where your differentiation is no longer customer service. It's like your size, right? Everybody knows about you. I guess the more in their face you can be, the better, right? Because they'll think about you. But for us, we want to like tell people like, hey, Elastic's a big company. They don't care about you. Like we'll care about you, right?
Yeah.
And that comes from just doing something really good and just being very kind and open about it. And when people come or when we reach them, we're like, we'll just give you the best that we have, right? Because you're important to us. And that goes farther than ads in a lot of ways, especially early on.
Yeah. I don't think ads would be a good use of spend. I think you have to be more
Yeah, and
innovative. You have to be more innovative. You have to be more determined. You have to understand who your customer is and how you're going to communicate with them, because
exactly.
ads would just be wasting money. Um, well, we've got a minute left. So, any closing words? Anybody who wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you? Obviously, we have all your links that you provided, all in the description of the show. Um, but if anybody wants to get in touch with you, anybody wants to read about you, anybody wants to, know more about you, where can they go?
Well, for a company, our website is paradedb.com, and our project, which you can read the full code on, is hosted on GitHub, github.com/paradedb. I guess those links will be down below. Please, take a look at it, follow the project. And for me specifically, I can be found on LinkedIn and Twitter. I often talk about startup mistakes that I've made. I wrote this pretty long postmortem on Whist, which got quite big. It's been read over 50,000 times by now. If you want to see my mistakes in broad daylight, you can go and see it there. My handle is Philippe M Noel at on LinkedIn and Twitter and everywhere. So maybe the links will be down below. People can
I
find me
read
there.
your I read your postmortem, and I thought it was great. So I love that stuff.
Glad you liked it. Hopefully, it saves a couple of people some of the mistakes we've made.
People are going to make mistakes that they're going to make. No matter how much you read,
They, yeah, they,
the people are going to
you
make
have to make
mistakes.
them yourselves.
You have to.
Everything seems so obvious until you're the one making the mistakes, and you're like,
Yeah,
"How could I make this obvious mistake?"
I know. So it's a great thing. But I've written many posts on and I talk about my mistakes all the time on this show and other shows. And I think it's all part of learning. And I don't think if I did that, I think about it all the time. If I was successful at that first company through all that pain, I don't think I would have been happy. So
Sure.
anyway, so um, thanks for being on. It was a pleasure talking to you. Good luck. I really enjoyed listening to what you have to say. It's above my pay grade. I'll be honest with you. I'm
I don't know.
strictly an e-commerce focused guy. I understand consumers. I understand customers really well, but I'm not a programmer. But I understand what you're doing, and I think it's fantastic. And I hope that you do go out there and build the future.
Well, cheers. Thank you for having me. It was a good time.
Yeah, thanks. Um, okay, well, have a good night, and we'll be in touch.
Cheers. Ciao.
Hey, great. I thought it was a great discussion. I always like to learn from people on what they're doing, and although again it doesn't fall into my world, maybe it does in a different way. You never know what happens, right? Because we do have people that we work with that are developers, and they might say, "Oh, I'm trying to do this," and hopefully, can keep that in my world. But I just love talking to young entrepreneurs and especially people who want to build the future and change the future. I love that discussion. And I love the fact that that's what his focus is. So hope you enjoyed it. I think, again, failed in his first business, failed in the first attempt, turned that into a positive. Wrote an article. 50,000 people read the article, his postmortem, which it has to tell you something, right? People want to understand what happened. They don't hold. I think a lot of times, and we've heard it from a lot of guests on the show, that people are afraid of failure, and people think that they're gonna have some idea that, oh my God, I wasn't good enough, or oh, whatever it is, you're whatever you're thinking. But that's just not the way that it happens. I mean, I've failed. I talk about it. People don't sit there and go, oh well, you're stupid because you failed. It doesn't happen that way. So if you're honest and open about your failures and you learn from it, you're just progressing. That's all. And failure always leads to success, in my opinion. It always has. So go out and we have the links. We'll have the links in the description. If you're interested, if you're a programmer or developer, I am going to push this on to some of the folks that I do know that are in that world, because I think it'd be interesting to get their take on it. But I think it's always fun to follow the progression. So I enjoyed it. And, in the upcoming weeks, we have some really cool people coming on. We've got John Hewitt, who started Jackson Hewitt tax company and Liberty Tax, right? It's the largest franchisor ever. So he's going to be on next week, and then we've got some other interesting ones coming up. So stay tuned, and enjoyed the conversation tonight. And we're out of time, so have a great night, and we'll see you next week.